Hey, people. Whew. Well, I had quite a day, and I'm getting it's just remarkable sort of how how the how the process keeps going, how evolution keeps evolving relentlessly. Um, and one of the things that this is actually something that kind of flashed in my awareness a day or two ago in meditation, but it has since kind of, I feel like it's been unpacked a time or two since then as well. In other words, like it's kind of either come up circumstantially or somehow entered my awareness. And basically, the thing is, it's like, in meditation, the work that we're doing is ultimately about identifying with a part of ourselves that transcends the world. Because consciousness itself transcends the world. It transcends all manifestation. That's the nature of it. And meditation is spending time identifying with that. And a lot of times meditation happens in the form of negation. In other words, letting go of all the things we're identified with now, the habitual behavior side of things. Just the thoughts we think, the things we feel about ourselves, the emotions that we're attached to, the actions we're attached to, the perspectives we're attached to, right? As we negate those things, not in the sense of saying they're wrong, but in the sense of saying they are not fundamental, they're not essential, they're not the core of who I am. They're just a perspective. It's just my thoughts. They're just the mind. As we let that go, we become more and more identified with this other transcendent part of ourselves. We become less and less attached. It's the path of non-attachment. Non-attachment is literally continuous letting go. And so what's been coming through, though, I mean, that's just sort of the mechanics of meditation and why the practice is so important. But the thing that's been coming through is, in order for that to work, on some level, we have to sort of embrace and accept the fact that our thoughts are just our thoughts. And I notice in myself a tendency for that to kind of come and go. There'll be days, if I have a day where really the meditation feels very profound and very connected, and I feel very identified with that transcendent dimension of my existence, then it's easy to see that I'm not my thoughts. But there are other days when that is more difficult to see. And my thoughts, the mind is always trying to convince us that it's the greatest show on earth, that it's the most important thing in town, that it's the sheriff in town. The mind will have us believe, what the mind is going to say always is that there is something to defend, there are problems to solve, there are goals to be reached, there is survival to be had, there are things to be accomplished in order for that survival to thrive. This is what the mind is designed to do. This is its job. It wouldn't be doing its job if it didn't say those things. And to the extent that we are consciously employing the mind deliberately towards those ends, the mind is not a problem. The nature of the mind is actually a benefit. It's a help that it works that way. It's just when we're trying to identify with a part of ourselves that is not the mind, that is not the ego, that is not even manifest, that doesn't even exist really, because it's transcendent. That doesn't mean that it's not real. Transcendent unmanifest does not mean unreal. It just means unmanifest. That's when the mind throws a fit. It throws a tantrum, and it shows us all the reasons in the world why that couldn't possibly be the case, and why we're crazy for discounting the concerns of the mind, the manias of the mind, the stipulations and recommendations and assertions of the mind. It's gonna try to convince us with all its might that it's real, and that the concerns that it has are real. And I feel that happening from time to time. Like I'll just notice that I'm sitting in meditation, and some days I'm able to label my thinking as thinking, and I can see this is the mind, this is just in my thinking, and I'm very easily able to sort of recenter in the breath or in pure awareness. Other times, it's like that thinking has its hooks into me. It's like it's got me. And I actually am identified with it. And even though I'm still doing the practice, I'm still labeling it as thinking and witnessing it as thinking, I'm not inwardly letting go of it. I'm only going through the motions of the practice of labeling it. I'm not truly disidentifying with it. And I think that's an important distinction to just be tracking as we do this work, because it's something that it's very, I can't imagine I'm the only person to have this experience. I would guess that anybody who's ever meditated has had this experience. I think the reason that I am kind of talking about it on this post, and the reason why it feels relevant, is that there's that the effectiveness and the movement that we make, the progress we make, really kind of does come down to whether or not we genuinely believe there is a dimension of ourselves beyond the mind. If we don't own that, and that's what sort of like is amazing to me, is that even with so much experience of that dimension, of that domain, all that experience doesn't amount to finality with regard to understanding that the mind is just the mind. There's always like the mind has this other way of, it's got a million strategies, and some of them hook me. Some of them actually do grab me. And I have to go, wait, what am I even doing? I'm just like going through the mechanics of meditation, but without the core central pillar of the whole practice, which is knowing that that there's this other dimension, and that's more fundamental than the mind. It's kind of like, it's like I had this flash the other day where it just seemed like on some level my mind is still hoping that it can trick God, for lack of a better way of putting it. It can trick spirit, it can trick source into being present, into infusing me with energy, but without giving up, without the mind actually having to step aside and say, I am not fundamental. And it's kind of a scary thing to perceive. It's kind of a scary thing to perceive the ego in such a tenacious fight for its life. You know, there's virtually no level of subtlety that the ego won't slip into. If there's any, this is what Chögyam Trungpa keeps talking about with deception. If there's any deception left, if there's any ounce, one tiny little kernel of deception in us, deception being not necessarily deceiving other people, but deception being willingness to deceive ourselves about what's happening, then the magic can't enter. Because we're repelling it. We're saying we're still in service of the ego. So that's just been that's the thing that has kept showing up a couple times now in the last couple days. It's just been a thing that I noticed. Like I said, it flashed in meditation for me when I realized, what am I doing? And then it's just kind of emerged, poked its head above the water a couple times since then. But I think my takeaway and my approach is simply to come back to that simplicity. Come back to the place of softness and lightness and presence. You know, and ease. That ease of being, that bliss of being. Try and locate that and be there. And then from there, all of a sudden the mind looks a little bit ridiculous. All of a sudden the mind is clearly just spinning a story. You know, it's like we have to be really deft with ourselves to be able to release all the little hooks, all the little ways that the mind is going, yeah, but this, yeah, but this, what about this? Can I get you here? It's going to go for every little soft spot, every little weakness. It's going to poke at them and try and hook us with it, try and keep us from disidentifying, because that's its job. It's a survival tool. It's just doing its job. It's kind of amazing when you think about it. It's like if all of evolution is this, various beings surviving, procreating and surviving so that consciousness can continue to exist. And now within ourselves, when we get into these higher level practices, we have to actually go against our own survival instincts. We have to actually identify the mechanism of our survival instinct and release it. Not necessarily stop it from functioning in the world, but release from thinking we are that. So that's what's coming through the last couple days. For whatever reason, it's been pinging, knocking on the door. Thanks for watching, people. So much love. Yeah, I appreciate you so deeply. This conversation means the world to me. I can't thank you enough, and I can't wait to see you again very soon. Wonderful day.